Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Samira Tilley, Marketing Manager at Assemble Systems. In today's flash briefing, we will look at some of the new and upcoming features and functionalities coming your way in Assemble. Now let's get started. It is my pleasure to introduce you to Tim Kelly, Senior Product Manager, and Brent Ramos, Sales Director at Assemble. Go ahead, Tim.
Thanks, Samira. And just normally we go through some brief introductions of ourselves, but being that we have a lot of content to cover today, we're going to go ahead and run forward with just titles and names. Before we do get started, I believe everyone here knows now that we have been acquired by Autodesk, so we want to make sure that we provide safe harbor statement. In this presentation, we're going to be telling you about some things that are released now and what's upcoming. Ultimately, please come connect with us at some of the upcoming shows, BIM Forum, Advanced Work Packaging Conference, and Autodesk University to learn more. Over the course of the past year and a half, or kind of some high-level chunks here that we bundled into what we called Assemble 2.0. Brent, can you kind of dive into your perspective?
Yeah, I'd love to, Tim. Thank you. So, I mean, you guys added a ton of stuff last year for our side over on the sales team, and it led to a lot of great conversations. And this is a huge list. I can't run through everything point by point, but if you really boil it down and put it in the perspective of our goal, which is to become the world's best quantity management system, really it's three key objectives that we were focused on last year. And the first one was really managing quantities from more modeling systems, so that would be beyond Revit into AutoCAD and other platforms. And then once we had those quantities, we wanted to build our users' confidence in those quantities, provide additional clarity, and then give more flexibility around that data. So that was the introduction of 2D measurements, parts, color, etc. And then finally, directly connecting those quantities off into the systems that make these valuable for project costing, scheduling, and management downstream. So that's where you saw the introduction of Excel, Power BI, Sage, P6, and others. But it was a great year overall, and from the conversations we had, our customers got a ton of value out of what was added.
Fantastic. And kind of diving then into what we want to cover today. We're not going to go through every release over the whole year, but all of the things that we've sort of bundled in, the most recent releases and some of the things we're working on now. We will cover a brief introduction of Assemble 3.0. We're going to go through some of our latest releases around Class Editor, new Assemble properties, new publishing, our schedule integration, and some updates to the mobile application. And then we're going to dive through some of the upcoming functionality around organizing data for advanced work packaging, publishing from Navisworks and BIM 360, as well as document linking and issues and other new Assemble properties. To jump right into Assemble 3.0, as you guys hear us talk about, we're a system of engagement. What Brent was mentioning is we're sharing that information to platforms that are usable across the spectrum, or that are used across the spectrum, where we have best of class solutions we want to connect to. We have reporting engines that we want to feed our data into, systems that ultimately we know you guys are using. That next kind of level, and the thing that we'd like to really focus on and talk about is how we condition and organize the information across the board. Ultimately, we want to provide a simplified access to your information. So get in and be able to aggregate data, organize the quantities that you want to see, and then ultimately associate that data to 2D visuals, 3D visuals, and point clouds. As you dig in and investigate object-based properties and information that you've added on top of, those components are also accessible and readily available right there in that same system. So as a core focus and key concept around conditioning and adding content to the model, we actually want to make that translation happen between scope or design intent and your schedule and your budget for your overall project. So that takes a lot of conditioning and organization by your team. So everything that we're going to be talking about here is really heavily focused around how do we add value to that content, allow you to organize it and push it in a meaningful way.
Yeah, this is a great slide, Tim. I mean, we all know what the pain is in our construction world. The information over there on the right in that design model is either too difficult or not in the right place or comes at too high of a time cost to really get in and make useful for construction. And we know the cause is that the design models they're just not construction ready. So what we're really doing here as that little cog at Assemble is being that machine that feeds that need to make models ready for construction, because the demand is out there from our customers to deliver these on-time takeoffs, quantities, updated budgets, updated schedules faster. The world is moving at the speed of technology, and trying to keep up with that using traditional methods just isn't possible anymore. So with Assemble, we've got a mechanism in place to take design models and make them into construction-ready models.
Absolutely, and there's so much valuable information in that design model that as you organize it and structure it, enrich that data, it becomes so much more meaningful. So stepping into that, first key features we released just recently is what we call Class Editor. We're going to be running through a bunch of features, but Class Editor is where we wanted to start, because as we talk about conditioning and what Brent was mentioning of organizing quantity data, we know a number of our customers want to change how that quantity data is represented. And with Class Editor, what we're doing is giving you rule-based calculations. So based on the classification you've either consumed in the model or provided on top of that model, it's actually stepping through and adding additional quantity data to those individual components that can then be rolled up and leveraged across the board.
Yeah, and Tim, this one, you've been around for a long time here at Assemble. This is a huge response to a demand we've had from our customers to be able to get in, manipulate, and do calculated values out of the dimensions and model values in Assemble. So, I mean, the response was tremendous. The first couple of days, over half of our customers downloaded and started actively using this. Couple feedback comments. My favorite one from one of our customers, he said, "This is exactly what we needed. It's all of my project quantities managed right here in Assemble. No more pushing out and doing additional calculations anywhere else. I've got waste factors, gross footages, everything you'd typically drive just off of the basic information to get into that, like we talked about earlier, the construction level ready quantities."
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head with waste factors and gross footages. I know so many times Revit quantities will get you pretty far, but so many times we'll get into the drywall conversation where the net square footage presented from Revit isn't as meaningful to someone getting a drywall quantity. They certainly want to get that gross footage and put a waste factor on it and roll forward from there. And this is exactly what's intended to be built out here.
We all know that's not how the subs do quantity takeoff, and this is a way to get there.
Absolutely, and ultimately we need that to land somewhere in Assemble that has a unit of measure associated. And what we've done with that is enhanced our Assemble properties, where you can specify a new property, give it a type, so area, volume, length, height, whatever that property type you want to apply, and actually give it a unit of measure on top of that. Additionally, with this new feature set, we're also introducing numbers in general, so you can add a numeric value as well as dates. So you have the ability to plug in a date from P6, and that is enhancing that P6 interaction. With the addition of all of these Assemble properties, across the model-based properties, you have these group headers where you can roll up that information. And because you have so many properties there, it's really important to collapse a lot of that down until it's pertinent or relevant to the conversation, and you can dive into just a handful of properties needed. We wanted to do the same thing for Assemble properties and ultimately give you buckets to organize your property or your data into. So we've given you the ability to create new properties within our Assemble properties here, and then add groups to the properties within a given project.
Yeah, again, Tim, this one's a great feature, great couple features that we're excited to talk to our customers about, because we can't tell you how many times we've heard from our customers. Our data is a lot more than just text when we're appending new data. It's numbers, it's calendar dates, it's quantities. And as our customers continue to build this data list out, it was starting to get a little difficult to manage, and this group properties keeps that data organized in a way that's functional for their teams.
Absolutely. Ultimately, just before we move on, this is kind of a quick representation of what you're going to see in the product. You have headers that give you the ability to roll that up. Quick mention on publishing update. We now support Revit and AutoCAD 2019 publishing. I know there have been a ton of requests already for this, and so two key updates. With AutoCAD, there has been a convergence of the different platforms into one unified system. And then within Revit publishing, we've made some significant enhancements to how we deal with and handle a large volume of sheets. So within our 2D publishing and the sheets publishing from Revit, there are a lot of big changes. With that, there are both back-end changes on the assemble side to speed that process up, but there are also changes on the Revit side where you actually have the option of increasing the performance of Revit. If you want those details, feel free to jump on our website, assemblesystems.com, and you can go find the help page for that. And you can also find that on the Revit help dialog, or help settings.
Quick comment to the audience out there. I am always tremendously impressed by how quickly you guys come to me and on my team and ask for the latest version of Revit. It's literally within days of the release. So appreciate you guys hanging on for the 2019. It's a great addition.
So I mentioned it a minute ago talking about the date properties, but a key feature of those date properties were bidirectional relationship with how we're moving information from Assemble back into P6. One noticeable difference with our schedule integrator is that now you can take data that you've aggregated or collected from the field through our mobile application and push that back into P6. So you do get a staging area to validate the dates and completion information before that gets pushed back into P6. But if you're using Oracle's web services or the EPPM product, you ultimately have the ability to take this data out of our system and push it to update your schedule.
And a couple early conversations we were having in very beta stages was, you know, what are our office guys looking for? And the top feedback was, hey, just give me a way to get real-time updated feedback loop going from the field so I can status my schedule, make sure that I'm accurate, make sure that things are flowing the way I expected them to, and do it in a way that's simple, clear, and easy to use for the field. So this is our response to that request.
Absolutely. And part of that field interaction is how do you plug those dates and that information in? So we made a bunch of updates. I'm not going to go through all of them just for the sake of time. But one key update is that date interaction. So when you go in to plug in a value that's date specific, you get what you would expect to see on an iOS device, the role for the specific dates. We can actually jump to today's date immediately, key that in, or pick from a list of dates as you go through and populate them. So a lot of updates on how we handle the simulations that we're doing, picking a start date, finish date, and then how we key in actuals, as well as a number of enhancements in our viewer and how the X-ray interacts with things, number of additions on the viewing experience.
And I shared what the office guys were asking for in that feedback loop. But when we talked to field guys, really all they wanted was a simple platform that they could jump in and look at some highly visual but data-rich look-aheads for something that's just focused on the work at hand. Simple, just 1 week, filtered down look-aheads for one, maybe two scopes at a time, just for simplicity and then an ease of updating that information.
Yeah, and that actually jumps right into some of the work we've been doing for quite some time now and haven't released yet, but kind of a break point here, the work that we're kind of diving into in a second here. It's all in development now and coming to you soon. But as Brent was talking about how we organize a chunk of work, we've been doing quite a bit to support scalable advanced work packaging and how we actually arrange that information to be presented in a structured package. Look for documentation coming out from us on this soon, and ultimately in just a couple of weeks here in Houston, Texas, you can stop by and talk to us at the Advanced Work Packaging Conference. Brent, anything that you've heard or from our customers today and what they're doing with Advanced Work Packaging?
You know, we hear a lot about this right now, and this whole concept is something that everybody should really be paying attention to no matter what facet of construction you're involved in, because the demand for better project control and transparency and visibility is out there, and But this isn't just coming from our customers in the construction side. I'm hearing more and more, and my team is hearing more and more, that the demand is really coming from our customers, the owners out there who aren't just asking for this, they're demanding that their contractors bring this approach to their construction projects. So we're watching this really closely. We're developing the workflows around it. We're working on the features to support this, but it's a big thing on our radar.
All right, Brent, before I change to the next slide, you see it over here. I know you're ready.
Oh boy, yeah. I really can't count how many times I've gotten this request. So for everybody on this call who's asked me or somebody from my team for Navisworks, here's Tim. He's going to tell you it's coming. So you're hearing it from him now.
Yes, Navisworks Publishing is something we've had a lot of conversations on for quite some time. And because we're a data-centric platform and Navisworks is aggregating a lot of model formats, there's a lot of different ways that data is organized inside of Navisworks. So we had a decision to make and either focus on specific data or broadly bring in all the geometry. And certainly we're going to be bringing in components geometry from Navisworks, but we started stepping through different data formats. So ultimately you're going to get all of that AutoCAD data, Revit data like you do today, plus SmartPlant 3D and DGN information. You're going to get a lot of rich data along with that. Certainly in other formats, you're going to be able to capture quite a bit of data there, but we're actually stepping through our testing process on how we're collecting that information. Jumping into, again, staying with publishing for a minute, this is something else we've been working on since last year when Autodesk first invested in us. We started taking a look at how we can tightly couple with document management across BIM 360 and start consuming model formats in a different way. Today, we deal with models that you have to download, open locally, and then push up to assemble. In the future, we want to actually give you the ability to start directly consuming that without any download or upload process.
Yeah, and anytime we can cut a step out of the process, more than happy to do that. I think this is a great way to cut a duplicated publishing process down for any of our admins or power users.
Absolutely. And yeah, just really in the future and part of being an Autodesk company today and some of the integration paths we see in the future, we're going to just make this easier and easier. Yeah, and sticking along the same line of documents and kind of going back to the beginning and talking about conditioning, we know that just adding data and, as you mentioned, text or even other properties, that doesn't paint the whole picture. So certainly across your model and how projects are managed, we need to start to capture more documentation for that project. So we've, again, with part of the acquisition, we're looking at a lot of different avenues of how this information is going to get collected and brought in to simplify that process. But we are rapidly approaching the point to start giving you the ability to connect documents to your models and share that information out as part of your overall project view.
Tim, to your point a second ago, we get that models and data are not the start and end of any construction project. We know there's just tons of documents out there that it takes to get a project done. And I've been talking to customers, we've been talking to customers who are chomping at the bit to take some of that documentation and organize it around the model and the data so that it can be filtered down to complete that story for your team in the field or for the team in the office. So whether it's attaching docs to a group of elements like this ISO here that's going to go with a pipe assembly, or it's a spec sheet to a particular material or group of parts, or if you're down at the granular level, I've gotten a lot of questions around, hey, can you just attach an O&M directly to a piece of equipment? This is how we complete that story on all the data and the documents next to the model.
Yeah, absolutely. And really this is adding clarity in a lot of cases. One, you're going to get the ability to add a repository of documents. You're going to be able to look across a lot of project documents and then attach them as needed or associated. But really, whenever you get into those isolated views or jumping back to like the work packages, you can start to see just the documents that are associated to that work package. Or if you have a particular line here, I can see all of the documents that are associated to any component within this line. So you get a lot of really good interaction between the office and the field with this being a kind of one view, or the central environment for that document sharing, that data sharing. And just going from, speaking of data sharing information, something we've also been working on for quite some time, and we're getting near release here on this. We want to be able to give you the ability to communicate in our product and share issues you may see across the model or the documents with one another. And Brent, I know you've mentioned this one to me so many times. What kind of information are you hearing from our customers on this?
Oh, we've heard all kinds of stories around different communication flows that have been built on the fly around communicating using this model information or the visuals. So whether it's just using our issues and comments properties and filtering down, or some folks just taking a screenshot, marking it up, and send it over email or even text. So we're excited to put this out there as a structured and organized way to communicate around the model and model data. So this is going to be a great response.
I do want to now hit on a handful of additional points for new assembled properties. 3 more property types that we want to focus on supporting in the near future are a little more advanced than just numbers, quantities, and text information. We want to start to give you the ability to add in your own breakdown structures. Data tree is what we're calling it. Today, if you're familiar with our system, familiar with Revit, you have within the model properties this assembly code, which is a hierarchical structure, and you have the ability to drill down through those various levels and get the information you need. With the ability to add this to assembled properties, you're going to have any number of these that you desire. So you're going to have the ability to bring in your work breakdown structure, your location breakdown structure, your cost code structure, any of those pieces of information that have both a code and a description associated, and give you the ability to then key in unit cost information associated to that if you have, or any other data that you want to associate with your project. Second to that, we're going to give you the option of a little simplified version, but it's just a predefined pick list. So this one I hear quite a bit. I just want a set of 10 values. I have these 10 things that I don't want anyone else on my project to add to that list. Keep it locked at this. And so that's going to give you the ability to actually specify exactly the set of values that you want to see. Specifically in terms of like updating status on projects, it could be something along the lines of not started, in progress, complete, and those are the only values you have. So something along those lines.
Outside of just the speed and ease of using this, after creating so many connections last year around reporting and connecting in other systems, our success team has created some really awesome dashboards, probably hundreds of dashboards for our customers. But that really highlighted the need for some more structured data, and those pick lists is going to be, and the data tree are going to be great for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're running a bit long here, so I want to get into questions. But the last thing I had on those properties is I mentioned dates before. In the near future, you're going to have the ability to then actually pick from a calendar here. But also the bigger piece of new enrichment to date support will be how you group and filter your model. So within our grouping, you have the ability to organize by any data set you want. But with the date or some specific date as a property, what we want to give you the ability is to roll that up by month or by year, and actually have those different levels of that particular. So with that, that kind of comes to the end of our flash briefing. We've run through quite a bit. I'm excited about all of what we're doing here. I'm excited that as part of Autodesk now we have a lot of opportunity to expand what we're doing with Assemble. And ultimately we have a whole lot of trajectory to continue delivering the work that we've got planned for you guys. In closing, I'm excited to keep delivering product from Assemble.
Absolutely. And I know, Tim, thank you for the flash briefing. I know it will generate more questions and inquiries into workflows. I want to invite everyone on in this call. Reach out to our team, work with us. We're happy to discuss what our plans are for making you successful, how you're managing quantities, how you're managing information in the system, and we're available to you at any time.